Ball on the floor, picked up by Trey Landers. He fires it ahead to Obi. Oh, he did it again.
It's March 2020 and Obi Toppin has been named Naismith's College Basketball Player of the Year. As a senior at Dayton University, he led the team to win 29 of their 31 games, finishing as the third-ranked team in the country. Obi accomplished almost everything a college player could do in 1 year, and he would go on to declare for the 2020 NBA Draft, where he'd be selected by his hometown team, the New York Knicks. Would Obi go on to obliterate NBA defenses like many opponents before them, or would the Knicks have to live with the fact they drafted the wrong player for another year? Welcome back, you guys, and today we're looking at the career of the man that had the most dominant individual season in college basketball in 2020 and his complicated NBA career. Obi Toppin was on NBA teams' radar after he broke Dayton University's freshman scoring record, but it wasn't until his sophomore year where teams said, wait, this guy might be a lottery pick. At 6'9", 220 pounds, he destroyed defenses with his vertical athleticism. He would leverage it as a roll man towards the basket to dunk and convert layups over defenders. He'd also use it to get easy points on fast breaks. But it wasn't just the athleticism, it was the fact that he improved in areas that were a weakness from the previous season. One critique of his skill set was he did not take enough three-point shots in his first year. In his second year, he shot 82 threes and made them at a 39% rate. So not only did you have to worry about his dive to the rim, you had to run out and defend the three-point threat. That makes your pick-and-roll offense more dangerous because it opens up lanes for the point guard to get to the rim. People liked that Obi was showing that he had counters for when defenses wanted to stop him at the rim. In the NBA, especially in the playoffs, teams are hyper-focused on shutting down what you do well and forcing you to go to plan B and plan C. That's what makes great players and what keeps you in the NBA for 10 plus years, being able to still affect the game when a team wants to stop what you're most comfortable doing. Dayton University finished that season as the nation's number 2 offense and would have been a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament if not for the shutdown in March 2020. Obi would declare for the draft, where he was projected to be a top 10 pick, but there were some questions about his ceiling as a player in the NBA. Most players selected in the top 10 of a draft don't take the path Obi went on. A lot of these guys were top prospects in their sophomore and junior year of high school. They were recruited heavily, played AAU every year. Obi wasn't one of those guys. He wasn't heavily recruited. He was 6'4" in his senior year of high school and went to prep school for 2 years. He ended up growing to 6'9" at prep school, and that's where he got his momentum. There were other on-court questions. That athleticism he used on offense, it did not translate to defense. He doesn't block as many shots as you'd like. He doesn't impose his will to get rebounds like he does when he's attacking the basket. Now, even though he was mobile on offense, he's not shifty and light on his feet when guarding on the perimeter. In college, he played a lot of center minutes, but in the NBA, he's going to be playing the 4, which means he's going to have to be guarding faster players. He can score in the post, but how many teams are running their offense on the low block like it's 2002? Not many. Plus, he was already 22 years old, making him older than most of the lottery picks in his class. People were concerned about his ceiling as a player. How much better can he really get? Even with these questions about his potential, his hometown team, the New York Knicks, drafted him with the 8th pick of the 2020 NBA Draft.
Obi Toppin from Dayton University.
Obi was born in New York, grew up a Knicks fan. Everyone was excited for Obi to get his chance to play for his favorite team. This had the makings of a great rookie season, right? Not exactly. Number 1, the Knicks were much better than expected. Julius Randle, who plays the same position as Toppin, had the best individual season of his career at that point. He averaged 37 minutes a game. He made the All-Star team. He made All-NBA second team, which is just crazy looking back at it now. Absolutely nobody expected Randle to be a matchup nightmare during the regular season. Also, head coach Tom Thibodeau isn't here to develop rookies. Coach Thibodeau built his reputation off of his defense. What are 2 of Obi's biggest weaknesses? Defensive positioning and rim protection. Number 2, Toppin couldn't find a way to dominate at the rim like he could at Dayton. He averaged just 4.1 points per game and was used as a floor spacing forward to open up driving lanes. When Toppin was on the court, he was in there with Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, and Taj Gibson. None of those guys are reliable outside shooters, which meant Obi was doing a lot of standing around. In college, Obi played a lot of center minutes, which gave him the freedom to play on the outside or inside. He didn't have the same freedom in New York, and outside of some highlight moments, He could not impose his will like he could in college. Number 3, the Knicks point guard rotation that year was pretty bad. It lacked pick and roll passing ability. They were mostly playing Elfrid Payton, who's now out of the NBA, and past his prime Derrick Rose. What's the point of drafting Obi Toppin if you have no floor spacing and no guards that can get him clean looks at the basket? This wasn't a good year no matter how you look at it. Obi had the second best odds of winning Rookie of the Year that season. He didn't win Rookie of the Year, and he didn't even get onto one of the all-rookie teams. That's how bad it was. He was already labeled a possible bust, but that's just year 1. It can't get any worse than that, right? Year 2 was horrible for the Knicks as a team, but was decent for Obi as an individual player. His stats weren't anything crazy. He was still an unreliable defender and shooter, and the Knicks missed the playoffs, but Obi was doing a bit better job of adapting to the situation on offense. He was doing simple stuff like running back on defense, sprinting in transition, and just competing. That's all you can kind of ask for at this point since he's not an initiator on offense. In the last 5 games of the 2022 season without Julius Randle, Obi was averaging 27 and 6, and that included a 42-point game against the Toronto Raptors. Now you can say it's the end of the year, the playoff teams aren't trying hard, and the bad teams are just playing their young guys. That is true, but there wasn't much to celebrate that Knicks season, so Obi having a better year 2 than year 1 was something for people to fall back on. While Obi was having a bounce back year, the guy he was trying to replace in the starting lineup had a terrible year. Julius Randle had one of the worst high usage seasons you'll ever see in basketball. It was genuinely impressive how bad he was on both sides of the ball. Because Randle struggled to get clean looks on offense, it made him care even less on defense. When you factor in the relationship between Randle and the fans as well, with his terrible season on the court, it looked like his time in New York might be done. But a trade wasn't possible because teams wanted nothing to do with Randle. He had 4 years left on his contract, and the Knicks did not want to attach 1 or more first-round picks to get rid of him. Now here's where things get interesting. There was some pressure from fans and media saying, you know what, it's time to let the young guys develop. There's no point of being a middle-of-the-pack Eastern Conference team. Let Obi get starting lineup minutes. It's the last year before he hits restricted free agency. Let's see what he can do, right? Well, in October 2022, here's what Tom Thibodeau had to say about playing time between Obi and Julius Randle.
You play the guys, it's based on performance, who fits best together. So it's not just, it's not fantasy basketball, it's what makes the group work best.
People were not happy when that soundbite dropped. People hated how Julius played and acted in 2022. People wanted Obi to get more playing time. And looking back at that interview is a good lesson of never judging a player on their best day or worst day, or better yet, best season or worst season, because Julius Randle went on to make the All-NBA third team in 2023. Whatever you think of Julius Randle, he falls off in the playoffs massively, but he gives you a baseline of shot creation that's going to get you to around 40 wins if he's your second best player. It's really that simple. Obi does not provide that. We know who Coach Tibbs is at this point. He's mostly trying to win games, not develop someone. The Knicks did win games last season. They were pretty good, but the Miami Heat took them out in the second round of the 2023 playoffs, and people on both ends of the Obi Toppin argument had their points. The easy thing to say is, Obi had no chance to succeed in New York because of the roster situation and Tibbs. How are you supposed to play for a coach like that? When you get in the game, you're on the clock to perform in 6 to 8 minute runs per half. It's hard to get going with inconsistent minutes. But the other side of the argument is, he can't dribble in tight spots, can't create clean looks for his teammates, is a below average rebounder at 6'9". Do we really need a lob threat who only shoots sub 30% from the 3-point line? He's also getting into arguments with the head coach of the team in the middle of a playoff series, and not to mention, this past summer was the breaking point. Will the Knicks re-sign him? Will he hit restricted free agency? Or will the Knicks just trade him? The Knicks traded him to the Pacers. This was the right move in my view. Julius Randle had a pretty honest reaction to the Obi trade a few weeks ago. Let's hear what he said.
That's my guy, man. He was in a tough spot. Obviously playing behind me, but I just tried to help him mentally stay in it as much as he could and make the most of his opportunity, and he did.
I like that he said this because no matter which side you're on, we can agree it's hard to develop when the guy in front of you is playing like 35 minutes a night. In Indiana, Obi is the starting power forward. I think he's going to meet some resistance later on in the season, because the Pacers can go to these smaller lineups with more shot creation at the power forward spot, but this is a good spot for him. He's going to be playing starter minutes, there's no pressure for Indiana to win, and they play a style on offense that meshes with Obi's skill set. The Pacers were the first or second best team in transition last year, depending on which stat you looked at. They're going to run a lot this season. Obi is probably never going to live up to those 8th pick expectations, but he has a place in the league, obviously. I think he's a better passer than what he's shown, especially in those short roll 2-on-1 situations. And that's it for me. Obi Toppin, what do you guys think? How do we see him doing this season with the Pacers? Appreciate it if you made it to the end of this one, and I'll see you guys soon.